Hi, my name's Mel and welcome back to Bookish Brummie. So for today's video we're going to talk about the Waterstones Christmas party that I went to at my local Waterstones store. So Waterstones, for people who are not in the UK, is a big book chain here in the UK. So there's a store in most big towns. To be honest, I think it's probably the UK's equivalent of America's Barnes and Noble. So I have a Waterstones card, which is like a really good thing to have, because essentially you get points every time you buy books from Waterstones if you buy them online or through the store, and then essentially for every £10 that you spend you get like a stamp that's worth like £1. So when you get up to £10 worth, then you can spend that. So that's like a free book every 10 books that you buy. Now I don't work for Waterstones, but I just personally think that's like a really good deal. So that's what got me. It's probably why I shop at Waterstones a fair bit sometimes instead of Amazon, is because I really like the Waterstones card. But if you go on the Waterstones website and then you search for events, you can see all the different events that are going on at the different Waterstones stores throughout the country, and there's always a fair bit going on. But I noticed for the store that's local to me, last week there was a Christmas event going on, and I've never been to anything like that. But this year I've been starting taking more interest in reading than I had in the last few years. And I had been to a couple of events where you got the opportunity to sort of meet authors or ask them questions. So when I noticed that they had a Christmas event where they had, they had quite a few authors. I think they had about 7 or 8 authors come in for the evening, and you had the opportunity to meet them and buy a signed book. I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that. I didn't have to pay to enter the event. It was perfectly free. They had left the store open longer than they normally would. And my local store has 2 floors. So they had on the ground floor and the top floor like little tables set up in various places around the store, and there was an author who was sat near that table, and they just had like probably 10 of their books on there. And essentially you could go in and you could just do late night shopping if you wanted to. I mean, you didn't actually have to speak to any authors, you didn't have to buy their books, so the whole store was open for you to go and shop in if you wanted to, which I really liked. As I said, they had the authors there with their tables with their books, so you could pick whichever ones you wanted to see, and all those authors were listed on the website under the event before you got there. So I mean, I looked them all up before I got there, so I had a very good idea of which authors I thought I wanted to go and visit. And then also they had like mince pies, had like tins of chocolate, and they had some games going on the ground floor, and they even had a gift wrapping service. So I just thought that was really nice. It was like a really nice Christmassy event, so I decided that I obviously wanted to go there. Prior to going to the event, I'd never heard of any of the authors, but I did look them all up and look at what they had written, and actually they weren't like unknown authors. Quite a few of them had written a couple of books, and probably quite well known in their own right. I had personally never heard of them. So the author that first caught my attention in the list before I got there, that I knew I wanted to go and visit, was Nuzo Uno, who had written 2 books that are in the horror genre. So these books are like set in Nigeria, and they're sort of like a horror perspective from like Nigerian. How should we put it? In fact, I'll read out the back of this one book because this was the one that caught my attention. So it's called Where the Dead Brides Gather. So Bata, a young girl tormented by nightmares, wakes up one night to find herself standing sentinel before her cousin's door. Her cousin is to get married the next morning, but only if she can escape the murderous attack of a ghost bride who used to be engaged to her groom. A supernatural possession helps Bata battle and vanquish the vengeful ghost bride, and following a botched exorcism she is transported to Ibjala, the realm of dead brides. There she receives secret powers to fight malevolent ghost brides before being sent back to the human realm, where she must learn to harness her new abilities as she strives to protect those whom she loves. So I just thought that sounded really good. I had watched a film and I can't remember the name of it, but that was sort of like Nigerian themed horror, and I just thought it was really good. So I was kind of interested with this being set in Nigeria, thinking actually I've never actually read a horror story set in Nigeria, and the way this is described sounds really good. It sounds like it's going to get into some fantasy as well. So I definitely knew that I wanted to meet this author, Nusa Uno, and I wanted to at least get one of her books. She actually has 2 out at the moment. So she has Where the Dead Brides Gather. This was the debut novel. And she also has one which is fairly new called Futility. So I asked her about her books, and this one she said is a bit more gross. So it might be harder to read, but it's also a bit experimental. But she when I asked her which one she would recommend out of the 2 to start, she said, well, actually they're both like a little bit different, so it really depends on what your tastes are. So this one is Crackling with Wit. This is a monstrous, gleeful, bitingly funny tale of murder, body swapping and bloody vengeance from the recipient of the Bram Stoker Award for Lifetime Achievement and Queen of African Horror. Betrayed by the men in their lives, 2 women seethe with rage and bitterness when a trickster spirit offers them the gift of revenge they cannot resist. Chia runs one of the best restaurants in Abjua, Nigeria, and is renowned amongst the male clientele for her captivating beauty and delicious hot pepper soup. But her hot pepper soup has a secret ingredient, and her beauty is not what it seems. Claire is a 50-year-old British woman living in Abjua with her young Nigerian boyfriend and his beautiful cousin, Sade. Consumed by jealousy and resentment, Claire's carefully organised life spirals into chaos after a night out at Chia's infamous restaurant. So I don't know why, but I'm sort of getting the idea that there might be some cannibalism in this book, especially based on the front cover. But yeah, I should also point out that for this novel, Nusa Uno did receive the Bram Stoker Lifetime Award. No, the Bram Stoker Award for Lifetime Achievement. So obviously I think that this book comes highly regarded for the fact that it has won an award. And then, I was only actually intending on buying the one, I was intending on buying this one, but I had such a nice conversation with this author, and I thought, do you know what, actually, I'm probably going to really enjoy this because it really sounds like the sort of thing that's up my alley. So I will buy both. And she signed them for me as well. So if you can see that one, which is really nice. To Mel, thanks for reading. Which I thought was really nice. She signed them like both the same, and then she also gave me some freebies with the books, like I got a bookmark and a little pad of post-its in case I wanted to make notes on the books while I was reading them, and then also like a little pot of moisturiser as well. And I say, she was a really friendly lady. She was the first person that I went to go and see because I was like super excited about her books once I'd looked her up online and seen what the subject matter was. And I also, because obviously I'm into the horror genre, I started talking to her, about how I was into Stephen King this year. So we had a bit of a chat about that, which was really nice. And then I asked her, what was her favourite horror novel? Because obviously I wanted to get some ideas. And she said that it was a novel called The Memory Police by Yoko Agawa. So I actually went off into Waterstones then, because I was like, I had actually heard of this novel before. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy it because I'm going to buy what you're recommending, because actually the way that she described the book to me made me really excited to want to go and read it. Unfortunately, my Waterstones did not stock a copy of this at the time. So I'm going to try and order this online. But yeah, so that was a really pleasant conversation, and yeah, I did walk away with one more book than I was intending on buying. But actually I think it was worth it, and I really think I'm going to enjoy both these books. They're both signed copies, and I met this author and she was really nice, so I can't wait to read her books. The next author that I went to visit was a lady called Annie Garthwaite. So she has written 2 books. There is Cecily, which is this first one, and then the second book, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, so I'm kind of hoping it's listed in here. No, it doesn't appear to be. But anyway, the second book is a continuation of the story that is happening in this book, and this is historical fiction with a feminist retelling. So I'll read out the back. 1431 is a dangerous time for a woman to be defiant. England has been fighting France for 100 years. At home, power-hungry men within a corrupt government manipulate a weak king and name Cecily's husband, York's loyal duke, an enemy. As the king's grasp on sanity weakens, plots to destroy York take root. It will take all of Cecily's courage and cunning to save her family, but when the will to survive becomes ambition for the crown, will she risk treason to secure it? This is a war as women fight it. So I had a really pleasant conversation again with this author as well, and we were sort of saying, you know, there's that saying that history is written by the victors, but then you could also add on to the end of that, and men. Because throughout all of these great wars that we've had through history, okay, women weren't necessarily on the battlefield with a sword, no, but they were playing quite an important role as diplomats in the background, and they did have quite a bit of a say, especially, you know, the mother of king or the wife of a king would have had some say. You know, they might necessarily had full control of what was going on, but they were definitely listened to in some situations, and nothing is really sort of said about this. I do think in the series Game of Thrones, we get to see a little bit more of this. What kind of women, what kind of impact women could have on war. So essentially, I'm really looking forward to Cecily because, you know, this is going to be the War of the Roses from a woman's point of view who was involved in it and what she was doing. And I actually really like a feminist retelling of history. I really wish there was more of it. So I was happy to pick up this book. And you know, if I really enjoy this one, then obviously I'll go and pick up the next one. But I did feel like I had just bought 2 other books from that other author, and I thought I can't be buying every single book that all of these authors have bought with them because I'm going to be bankrupt if not. So we've just gone with the one for this one, and again I have a really nice. I don't know if you can actually see that on camera because the pen is pale, but this is also dedicated to me. You know, for in praise of strong women. So yeah, really looking forward to reading that. And then I bought a third book and I had a conversation with a third author. So this one is called Frank and Red by Matt Coyne. Now this one I had actually also looked up before I went and had an idea that I was probably going to buy this book. So I've never heard of Matt Coyne before, but probably part of the reason that I've never heard of him was that he actually mainly writes children's books, like really small children, where, you know, most you've got like loads of artwork in the book and just a couple of words on each page. So, you know, probably looking at children, you know, between the ages of like 2 and 4 is normally like what he's writing books for. So yeah, I don't really have any young children in my life, so I really wouldn't know the kind of authors that are writing in that space at the moment. I really wouldn't know. However, Matt decided that he was going to write an adult book, and this is his debut for that. And I think the back of it sounds really good. It says, Frank is a grumpy old curmudgeon, a recluse whose only company is the ghost of his dead wife, Marcy. He is estranged from his friends, his son, and the ever-changing world beyond his front gate. And then Red moves in next door. Red is 6, a boy struggling to adjust to the separation of his mum and dad, a new school, and the demonic school bully. Red is curious, smart, he never stops talking, and he's got a trampoline. From the moment Red's blonde mop appears over the top of the fence that divides their 2 gardens, the unlikeliest of friendships is born, and it is a friendship that will change both of their lives forever. So this is going to be contemporary fiction, and you know, reading the back of it, I'm sort of getting a feel of Frederick Backman's A Man Called Otto, which is obviously about a grumpy old man who kind of feels a bit left behind by the world as well. So I have not read that novel yet, but I do have it on my shelf, and I really like the premise of it. And there was a film as well, which I've watched part of. So I think that, yeah, the book is called A Man Called Ovo, I think, and in the film it's called A Man Called Otto. Anyway, I sort of get the same feel about this book as what I'm getting about that film and potentially that book. So I was sort of intrigued by this, and I do really like stories where you've got a member of the older generation with a member of the youngest generation. So again, if I go back to Frederick Backman, he has also the Brit Marie books. There's 2 books from there. Where essentially, you know, you've got Brit Marie who is older, and then, you know, she's spending time with children. And I just really like the dynamic when you bring those 2 generations together. So this was kind of like stood out to me as something that I would definitely, you know, want to read. And this has been reviewed by, you know, the Times and the Daily Mail. So even though I wasn't aware of Matt as an author prior to going to this Christmas event, clearly he's well known. So I have every faith that I'm going to enjoy this book. And I also had a really, really nice conversation with him as well. He's a very, very friendly person. And even though I actually said to him, I don't really have any children in my life, it didn't stop him talking me through his children's books and actually showing me them, showing me the illustrations in them, and showing me, you know, the illustrations that he liked in them. So he doesn't do his own illustrations. He obviously has to have an illustrator, like when he's doing the books. But I just thought it was really nice that he took the time to do that, because he obviously knew that he wasn't going to get a sale out of me. So he just seemed like a genuinely nice person. And again, he was really good enough to dedicate this book to me. So again, that's really, really nice. So as well as like obviously meeting these 3 authors and buying the 4 books that I was there, you know, I had a few conversations with the staff there as well. Like, they were really nice, because they were like, you know, show us your haul. So I did, so that was really nice. And again, consistently it's normally the same staff at my local Waterstones, so I know I go in from time to time, so I've kind of got used to who's working there. I normally have a bit of a chat about the book that I'm buying, or books that I'm buying, like when I go in there. So that was really nice as well, and they all seemed like really chilled out, and they didn't seem stressed by the fact that the store had late hours. I really enjoyed the event itself. I enjoyed the fact that I could walk around and browse the shelves even though this event was going on, because obviously I was looking for that book that was recommended to me. And you know, I just actually spent quite a long time having a look at the sci-fi section, because you know, I don't necessarily get the opportunity to go in the store that much. I probably do a lot of my shopping like actually online, like ordering from Waterstones, rather than going into the store, just because they're normal weekly opening hours. By the time I finish work and done all the things that I need to do around that, it's normally the shop is closed, and I don't really get the chance to go on weekends, because that's when I tend to do my long runs and they take up a lot of my day. So it was just actually really nice to go in there and, you know, just stand there without anybody bothering me, looking at the shelves, you know. And what I would say as well, it wasn't like overly crowded. So whilst this was advertised on their local website, I don't think like a lot of people really check. So I did hear a lot of people going, oh, I didn't know you had an event on today, you know. So despite the fact that it wasn't rammed with people, which I'm glad it wasn't, because I was literally able to walk up to any table that I wanted and have a chat with somebody, so that was really, really nice. I was really surprised at like the calibre of authors that they actually had come to the store for this Christmas event. They were obviously like all really well regarded. As I say, I only bought books off 3 of them, but I mean, you know, I could have happily gone around and bought books off all of them. I just sort of bought the ones that I thought would be my favourites. So, you know, we've got like 2 horror, 1 historical fiction, which is a feminist retelling, and some contemporary fiction. So I had a really, really, really good time. So I guess I'm just making this video because I just wanted to say like what a nice time I'd had, and what a nice time I'd had meeting these 3 authors who were just really, really nice. So, you know, check them out online, check their books out online on their socials or whatever if you have the opportunity. Maybe you've also had the opportunity to read one of these books. If you have, let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, I definitely think it's worth checking your local bookstores and what events that they've got going on, because you never know, and actually you might have an author signing or an author coming to the store who you really, really like, and you thought, oh, my town would never get that person here, and you might be wrong, you know. Because I've had a look at what is going on in my local store in the next couple of months actually, and there's an author signing coming in February for an author whose book I'm actually aware of that's coming out. So if I get the opportunity, I might go to that as well. So yeah, I hope you really enjoyed this video and enjoyed looking at my haul. I don't do hauls very often, but I just thought I would make an exception this time, because obviously this was part of an event and got to actually meet all of these people and actually got all of these books signed, so that's quite exciting. So yeah, if you like this video, please press like, so I know that you like the content, and if you'd like to see more, then press subscribe so you can see when all of my videos come out. I look forward to seeing you again on the next video. Bye!